Welcome to today's webinar, Engage Students to Pursue STEM and Trades Careers, Next Steps After Vermont's Women Can Do Conference, a student event, with Kelly Walsh, Megan Pollock, and Lynn Vera. My name is Greg Nagy, and I am the Virtual Learning Community Manager from The Ohio State University who provides technical support for the STEM Equity Pipeline Project. Before we start the presentation, I would like to go over some housekeeping items for this webinar. The webinar is scheduled to last roughly 1 hour and is being recorded in order to view this presentation in its entirety later. The recorded webinar will be available in the next few days on the stemequitypipeline.org website. As you've already found out, you'll be watching the presenters present slides through Adobe Connect interface while listening to them talk over your computer speakers. All the participants' microphones have been automatically muted. If you would like, you can make the presentation larger for you just by clicking the full screen button at the top of the Adobe Connect window. Click it again to return to the normal screen. The presenters will answer questions after the presentation. However, we can take questions at any time. This is how we take questions. At any time during the presentation, you may submit a question by typing your question in the chat pod at the bottom of the Adobe Connect window.
We welcome everyone to our webinar this November.
I would like to start the webinar by introducing Freda Walker.
I'd like to start by just sharing that we have three speakers today. So I'm going to introduce them a little bit later, but I'd like to talk about our funding. This is the National Alliance for Partnership and Equity, and we are in collaboration today with the Vermont Agency of Education, the Vermont Works for Women, and the National Science Foundation. All are helping to fund the webinar, and we appreciate their partnership. I'd like to start by asking you how you found out about this webinar. So you can see there's some questions. If you could begin to answer those. How did you hear about this webinar? Okay, let's display the results. Maybe everyone can already see them, but you can see that most people have heard through our mail, through the pipeline email listserv, some from other listservs. If you actually had another listserv, would you please go to the chat window and let us know how you heard about it. Also, if you had a newsletter other than the STEM Equity Pipeline newsletter, could you tell us which newsletter? I can see a few people are chatting, and thank you. Okay, we'll move on. I'd like to remind everyone that you can view all of our archived webinars at the stemequitypipeline.org website. Also, if you would like to receive a certification of completion of today's webinar, if you will fill out the evaluation that we pop up at the end, or that comes to an email to you, then you'll be able to download a certificate and put your name in and have that as to be able to use for professional development hours. We have some resource documents for you, and I want to tell you that today it's just the best one that we've had. It is full of information, and it has the contact information for our presenters. So if you look in the documents to download, if you were to highlight that document, and then you can hit the download button, it'll bring up another screen, and you can download it to your computer. So be sure and do that today so you have that to take with you. It also includes all the links and all the references and resources that have been identified from the three speakers. Please use the chat function to let us know what's happening. Are your reactions, your ideas, or anything that you have to share. If you have anything that you would like to share that is an uploaded document, a document or a resource, you can upload that into our document sections. And a reminder that our questions will come at the end of the presentation. You can enter your questions in the question box there, and you should see that on your screen just above the chat function. Okay, who's participating in the webinar today? Let's start answering, and everybody can just watch because the results are being broadcast. Oh, right now we have a real 30-30-30 mix, kind of 33 mix. Okay, I think we can start to see the makeup of our audience as you look at that. Those of you that did other, because we have quite a few that have put in other, could you please chat what you represent or what your job function is in your agency? Okay, thank you. I know people are typing, but I'm going to move on. I have another question that relates to who's on the webinar, and this one I want to tell you that the screenshot on our PPT is a little bit different, but if you look right here, you can see that I have 4 questions I'd like to ask you. I work in Vermont and attended a Women Can Do conference, or I worked in Vermont and I did not attend. I do not work in Vermont, but have attended a non-traditional careers or trades event for females, or I do not work in Vermont and I've never attended a non-traditional career event for females. Okay, I think that this lets us start to see that about 20%, no, let's see, about 30% of our attendees are from Vermont. Some have attended the Women Can Do conference and some have not, but most of them have. We have many who have, well, it's a pretty almost, well, there's a division then between those that are outside of Vermont and have attended an event or not attended an event. So thank you for your answers. If any of you want to chat and tell us some of the things that you've attended that pertain to non-traditional careers, we'd appreciate your information. Okay, let's move on. I'd like to know now if you can tell us whether you represent an elementary, a middle school, a high school, K through 12, community college, university, or other, and if you have other, please use the chat function. It certainly looks like we have a mix. Those of you who wrote other, if you're from community-based organizations, can you list the name of your agency and the state and maybe the town where you work? Okay, let's move on. Let's close that poll. I'd like to know also if there's anyone that is watching this webinar with you. It helps us to know how many people are actually online. So let's see. You're either watching by yourself or with one other person, 2, 3, 4, 5, or more than 5. If so, tell us how many more than 5. Okay, so we have a few that are watching as a group. We appreciate the groups that have joined us. Let's move to the next poll. Oh, it's not the next poll, the next slide, thank you. These are our 3 speakers today. They're going to talk about engaging students to pursue STEM and trades careers. It's really a follow-up to an event such as the Vermont's Women Can Do conference, which is a student event. I'm going to introduce Kelly. Kelly will introduce Megan, and Megan will introduce Lynn. Kelly, you're on.
Hello, everybody. To start off today, I'm going to talk a little bit about a brief introduction to our Women Can Do conference, and then a little bit about what sparked our interest in hosting today's event. So the Women Can Do conference is Vermont Works for Women's STEM exploration and trades exploration conference for high school girls. This past October, we were happy enough to host our 16th annual event at the Vermont Technical College. We had around 500 students in attendance. We had about 100 chaperones, and we had about 100 instructors. The structure of the day is we have 40 hands-on workshops and 45 Action Expo stations. The girls have the opportunity to choose the programs that they're interested in looking at, and all of them are focused on these STEM and trades careers. The vast majority of our instructors are females who are professionals in these fields, and we also have the opportunity to bring in students who are currently enrolled, so female students who are currently enrolled in their local technical center in non-traditional programs to serve as student leaders. Here's an example of how we advertise the event and how we promote it throughout the state, and a quick look at the welding webinar, the welding workshop. And as you can see, the girls there, this is very much a hands-on event. They're not just looking, they're not watching what's happening, they're doing it themselves. As I mentioned, all of the workshops and action stations are focused in the STEM and trades careers, and here are some examples of what they were looking at and doing this past October. And we're really proud of this event. We're tremendously proud of this event. We know that it's an excellent introduction for girls into these non-traditional careers and to thinking about these careers. It's a fantastic opportunity for them to be connected with female role models who are already in these fields, who they can connect with and think more about how they can follow up with this. But we also realize that it's just a start. It's just the first spark, maybe the beginning of their interest in these different pieces. So our hope for today is to talk about when we have such an event, when we do spark a student's interest, when they recognize that this is something that they might want to pursue, what can we as educators do to help them continue that exploration, to help them follow through and find out how to get into those different careers. And so today we're going to look on some opportunities both within the state of Vermont and nationally that can help us build on that excitement and help students connect to those different pieces and follow through with that. So to start us off with the national perspective, I'm going to pass it off to Megan Pollock, who is the Director of Professional Development for the National Alliance for Partnerships in Equity.
Megan, this is Greg. We're not hearing or seeing you.
Everyone, we're having a little
Fred, I can't
technical
hear you.
problem, although we tested before this morning before we got on. So I'm sure Megan will be getting on in a minute or two. So let's just hang together on this and see what's happening. I think we'll just give her a little bit of time. And if not, then I will move forward and have Lynn come in. But let me see if she chats to me. For any of you, when this happens, we sometimes ask you to actually leave the room and then come back in on a different server or a different, maybe on Chrome or on one of the other. I can't think, Greg, about which thing I want to say, but.
Test, test, test. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Megan. That sounds good.
Browser.
Let's see if we can see you. Thank you. There we go.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for the difficulty. I could see and hear myself. I don't know why you all couldn't hear me and see me. Okay, so let's get started. So today we're here to talk about the application of some of the tools that were delivered to the Vermont participants for the Women Can Do conference. And so one of the tools that was provided to the participants and to the volunteers and to the role models there was the STEM career toolkit that NAEP has. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that toolkit, but we're really going to talk about it in as a framework for how to talk to young women, to talk to students, and get them excited about STEM careers and non-traditional careers in general. So essentially the key point here, and I think what brings us all together, is the idea that we all know that STEM careers are in demand and that there are opportunities available to every student. We know that historically women and students of color are underrepresented in STEM careers and in many non-traditional fields as well. And so what we're going to talk about today are some effective ways to communicate STEM careers to a variety of students in a way that can get them excited, engaged, and interested and willing to pursue these careers. So I want to talk a little bit about the toolkit because there are a large population of you who are from Vermont who received this, and so we want to kind of give you a framework for that. So the toolkit that we have designed for counselors is really based on years of working with counselors. So I started working with counselors in 2008 talking about why engineering specifically is what I started with, why engineering is such a great career. And I started with that because I'm an engineer and I think it is a great career. But we began with this idea that we know that counselors and educators make a difference, that they have the ability to impact students in a unique way. And so we want to give them the tools and the messages that they need to address the gaps for STEM careers and moving forward. So we know that STEM professionals are in demand. We'll talk a little bit about statistics. We won't go into that in great detail today. We know that young women, Blacks, and Hispanics are underrepresented in most STEM disciplines. But ultimately, why I really care about this is that STEM professionals make a difference in our world. That STEM is everywhere around us. It influences everything that we do and everything that we touch. And if it weren't for these people, then we wouldn't have the lives that we get to enjoy, the health and the happiness and the safety. And so these careers are amazing careers that should be available to every student. And every student don't see these careers as opportunities for them. And so that's what this message is all about. And the fifth and final point is that we do know that focused intervention efforts that target underrepresented students, like the Women Can Do conference in Vermont, they make a difference. And so the tools that are in the toolkit are really designed to help counselors and educators facilitate some of these engagements with students. So the toolkit contains a few different pieces. So the first thing is a booklet that essentially describes some of the research that we're going to just briefly skim over today. And it has lesson plans and activities. And so these are activities that are handouts that you can do with students. There are lesson plans to help you as educators, as informal educators, counselors, administrators, whatever role that you might play, to help you facilitate these activities with students and to facilitate some of the discussions as well. In addition, we have kudos cards and web resources for students, and you can find all of this information at napequity.org/counselors. So I want to start us off with a little bit of an activity here. So I've got a poll that I'm going to be pulling up here, and I want you to create a list of all the things that you've used today that have been engineered. So you should be able to see that there. Just type some things in that box. List all the things that you've used today that have been engineered. We've got car, desk, computer, water bottle. What else is showing up here? Microwave, iPad, coat. Yes, it's cold in Texas. Desk chair, shoes, bathroom, phone, internet, office chair, water kettle, internet, Sonicare, computer, iPhone. So we've got lots of great examples. Dishwasher, lots of great examples of things that you've used today that have been engineered. So I want to ask you another question. So now, can you think of one thing that you've used today that has not been engineered? If you can think of one thing that you've used today that has not been engineered, type that there. So we've got food. So food and apples, yes, those those have certainly been engineered. If you think about the fact of how the apple even gets to you, unless you just happen to have some random, apple tree that's grown in your backyard that you can go and pluck a tree from, most likely you bought that from a store. So that plant the tree was planted with seeds. There were machines used to plant to pull the apple from the tree. All the transportation used to get that to you. So yes, engineers have certainly touched the apple to some degree in how you've used that today. Going to say water, but no, someone says here. But yes, indeed, right. Water has been highly engineered. All of the pipes that we know, the water has been filtered. Engineers have been highly engaged in the process of our drinking water. So we've got a couple other things here like meditation, me, sunshine, air. Our air has certainly been conditioned to some degree. Again, I'm joking, so I live in Texas and we aren't really accustomed to cold, and like the rest of the country, it's very cold here right now. In the 30s, and we aren't quite prepared for that. And so I actually had to turn my heater on this morning. And so we are using that engineered technology to get through the day down here. But yeah, so essentially, you could say your brain, maybe your brain's not specifically engineered, but there are people's brains who have engineered components to help them function, to keep them from having seizures. You know, you can implant cochlear devices into the brain to help people see. The fact of the matter is, the point is here, that everything that we touch, everything that we use has been engineered. And one of the lesson plans in the toolkit gives you a way to facilitate a discussion with students and help them to realize that engineering and science, technology, and math that informs the engineering and all of these people that work together to collaborate, that everything has been touched by an engineer and everything's been touched by the STEM that we so often take for granted because we just can't really see it. And so this activity is one way to get students really excited about seeing the influence of technology all around them and in their lives. So we believe that there's an opportunity for every student to pursue a career in STEM. And there are three key ways that we're going to do that. So again, I'm presenting to you a framework for how to engage with students. Lynn's going to talk about, after me, some examples from the state level of some specific activities that they have done and that you can do. But what's really important is that no matter what kind of activities that you're planning for your students, it's really important that you start with these three things, that you start with these three messages as sort of the foundation to everything that you're going to do. And the first thing is this: it's really important that you have the right messaging, that we learn how to explain the value of STEM careers using positive messaging that is attractive to and equitable to a diverse group of students. The second key thing is work values. It's important for us to learn how to incorporate the benefits of STEM careers into discussions that will appeal to the work values of all different kinds of students. And finally, it's really, really important that we learn to identify all of the different opportunities and pathways in STEM. And because I'll talk a little bit about the different opportunities and pathways, but that doesn't just mean a four-year degree. It opens up so many different opportunities for students outside of that standard that we've always really kind of believed in the four-year. There are lots of opportunities for students with two-year degree and certifications. So these are the three key points that I want you to take away today, and we'll come back to them in a little bit. When we talk to students about STEM, we so often sort of start with how to get there, right? We start with, hey, you need to take math, this math class and this science class, and oh, wait, you want me to take calculus, and now I've got to take AP physics. And when we frame STEM as calculus and physics and this sort of fear of math and science that really permeates our society, we really lose the opportunity to engage students' interests and to engage their passions. And so it's important that we learn to talk about STEM starting with the why. Why does this matter? Why do we need to get more students interested in and engaged in and pursuing careers in STEM? And so the National Academy of Engineering came up with this list. They didn't just invent it, but they brought together the brightest minds from all across the world, and they came up with a list of the grand challenges for the 21st century. And you'll see here on the list that there are 14 grand challenges. The link to this is provided to you in the handout that you can download underneath my webcam picture there. And so there's a great video on engineeringchallenges.org. It's about 6.5 minutes that kind of describes what these grand challenges are. But essentially, this is what we need our students to solve. These are the challenges that are before them that we need them to figure out what to do so that we can advance as a global economy. And so some of the things to bring them, to spike a few out, are like on the second column, the second one, secure cyberspace. I think that we have all had experiences where Target or Adobe or Chase, they've all had security breaches with their banking information. And that's one example of protecting our own identities or from our financial identities. But that's just a piece of it. If you think about how much information is out there, it's really critical that we come up with the brightest ways and strategies to secure cyberspace for all of us. You'll see things in the first column like engineering better medicines and advancing health informatics. Think about how critical it is for your doctors to know what your other doctors are prescribing you. It's really important for medical professionals to be able to know who's taking what and how much are they taking, and to make sure that things are interacting. And there are incredible ways that we can advance the technologies to keep us really healthy. And so there are lots of different examples here, and I really challenge you to take an opportunity to explore these with your students, because this is how we're going to get them excited. When we talk about why STEM matters and how STEM is influencing our world, these are the problems that they're going to get to solve and that we need them to solve. So if we've got all these problems, how are we going to solve them? So we're going to solve them by meeting the demands that we have. So I want to give you just a few statistics so that you have that framework. So if you look at the workforce, since 1950, the science and engineering workforce has grown at 5 times the rate of the general workforce. And even over the last decade, 15 years, the science and engineering workforce has still grown at about the same rate. So even in a period of economic decline, science and engineering has grown at a continued high growth rate. The second key thing is an issue of retirement, that many science and engineering workers are reaching traditional retirement age. So what this means is, if you like the pipeline metaphor, that we've got this huge group of people who are about to retire, and there's no one literally in the pipeline to fill all their jobs. And so we need to address that need, and that's one of the challenges that we have and the industry is facing. If you look at STEM jobs, that they are the fastest growing. So 7 out of 10 of the fastest growing occupations requiring at least a 2-year degree are in STEM fields. This is the kicker right here. And this is something that was incredibly shocking to me when the report came out a couple of years ago. But if you look at all the STEM jobs available, half of them are available to workers without a 4-year degree. So that means that of all of the jobs available in STEM, and again, they're high demand, high growth, they're available to people with 2-year degrees and certifications. Tell me if that doesn't challenge some of the stereotypes that we have about who gets to go into these careers. The fifth thing that's important to know is that STEM knowledge is imperative. Whether your students choose a career in STEM or not, being proficient at one STEM field is going to be really critical for their job. So 1/5 of all jobs are going to require a high level of STEM knowledge in any one STEM field. So one of the key takeaways from this presentation is that you realize that there are multiple pathways and opportunities in STEM careers. And so that means that there are certifications that the students can get, associate's degrees, all the way up to the doctorate. And one of the activities that we provide in the STEM Career Toolkit helps you to kind of explore these different pathways and opportunities. And just like not all students are going to go into STEM disciplines, but we do know that all students need to have some STEM knowledge. We also know that an education in STEM enables many career options and opportunities outside of STEM. And so if you get a degree in STEM, it's one of the most transferable degrees that there is. And the reason is because you've really got a pretty strong degree in problem solving, and that translates to lots of different things. If you look at Texas Instruments, for example, so I worked at Texas Instruments as an engineer a few years ago, and so their technical marketing team, their sales team, are all engineers. Why do you think that is? Well, that's because they have to be engineers to know how to talk about the engineering components that they're trying to sell or market, and they've got to be able to engage with and converse with engineers and understand the problems that they're trying to solve. And so if you look at the technical sales and marketing team at TI, they are a gregarious group of people. They're people who like to go out and engage with people in that kind of way. And so it really challenges some of the stereotypes that people hold about engineers and who they are and what they look like. Business leadership. One in the most common undergraduate degree among Fortune 500 CEOs is an engineering degree. Patent law is a fast-growing area. So if you get an undergraduate degree in a STEM discipline and then go on and get your Juris Doctorate, there is incredible opportunities for you to defend companies' patents through that. We know that we need educators. We need people who are educated in STEM to teach the next generation of students, and there is a high demand for people with these skill sets to educate our students. You can go on and be an entrepreneur. I know for myself, like I never imagined, if I would have fly back to my 18-year-old self to think about, going into I studied computer science in my undergrad and electrical engineering in my master's and worked as an engineer. I never would have imagined I would be able to take that background and launch it into the career that I have now. And that was through being an entrepreneur during my PhD and being a consultant. And now I get to work for NAEP, and I'm really in my dream job working with educators and talking about these fantastic careers and opportunities for every student. And so helping our students to see that there's more than one pathway. It's not a straight, trajectory, that there are lots of different opportunities, and an education in STEM is really the launching pad to lots of different opportunities. So the next key message is that we've got to change the conversation in how we talk about STEM. So we started with the grand challenges about the why, right? We talk about why STEM is important, why these careers are important for our students. But we've got to change the message. We've got to change how we're talking about these careers. Particularly, this is really relevant for young women. And so there are 3 key messages that come out of the national academies, and they were really designed as messages specific to engineering, but I've taken the liberty and expanded them across STEM careers and STEM professionals because I think that it's completely accurate as well. And the 3 key messages are this: that STEM professionals make a world of difference and help shape our future. The work that STEM professionals do, like we did in that very first activity where we listed everything that we've used today that's been engineered, where we tried to name one thing that we've used today that hasn't been engineered, we see that engineers and the scientists and the technologists and the mathematicians that work with them, and they all work together, they solve problems that have changed our world, and they're shaping our future. The jobs that our students are going to have probably aren't even created yet, and they're shaping the future. And it's really critical that we use this language rather than the how do you get there, because this is a better hook, right? The second key message is that STEM careers are essential to our health, happiness, and safety. If you look at the number of young women who choose and what careers that they're choosing, they choose careers in the health professions, and they choose this because they want to help others. They want to work with others, which is the third message. STEM professionals are creative and collaborative problem solvers. But when we learn to reframe STEM in a way that is attractive to more students, particularly young women, to use this language that, hey, you can help other people, you can do work that changes the world, this is how we're going to get students excited about these careers. I know for me as an engineer, I worked on a technology called digital light processing. It was the technology was a digital micromirror device. And the technology was originally designed to work at the movie theaters, at like high definition movie theaters. So you go and you get to see fancy movies in high definition. I didn't really care about that, but what I did care about was that the technology that I was working on was going into health applications that was saving babies, and that was making it easier for doctors to work on babies. And so that was really rewarding to me. Now, that doesn't mean that's the same for every person, but it was important for me as an engineer to figure out how the work that I was doing was aligning with my own work values, and we'll talk about work values in just a moment. But when we start talking about STEM careers, it's really critical that we use these 3 messages. So you've got 3 messages on the screen. This is the foundation for everything that we want to present to students. We don't want to start with this sales pitch that was just a couple years ago on a very popular college website. They were advertising STEM different careers. And on the engineering page, it says, information on careers in engineering. And I gave the sales pitch. Do you like to work really long calculus problems? Do you like to work late hours in the lab? Now, how many people is that attractive to? Not very many, right? So certainly there are a few people that might be really attractive to, but this can't be our sales pitch. This can't be the hook that we get students excited about and interested in STEM careers. These are the messages. These are the three messages that everything that we do when we engage with students should be framed within these three buckets. STEM professionals make a world of difference and help shape our future. The STEM careers are essential to our health, happiness, and safety, and that STEM professionals are creative and collaborative problem solvers. I want to talk really briefly on this idea of creativity before I move on. But it's really important that we challenge the stereotype that the sort of right-left brained, that the creative types go somewhere else and the logical people go into engineering and to STEM professionals. That's not what we need to continue doing. We need all of the creative people to come over to STEM to solve these great big problems that we talked about in the beginning. So I'm a creative type, and I loved being an engineer because I got to be creative. But it really kind of was a lot different than a lot of my coworkers, as a matter of fact, because they didn't identify as the creative type. They were, the strictly logical types. But we need people who think differently around the table in the same way that we need more women around the table and more people of color. We need all sorts of diversity in solving these great problems for our world. So in the STEM Career Toolkit, there are some activities that you can do, and one of them is specifically on health, happiness, and safety. And so there's 2 worksheets and a lesson plan that you can do to help really reiterate this idea that STEM professionals, STEM careers are essential to our health, happiness, and safety. So I encourage you to look at that and dig through that. You can see more about this on napequity.org/counselors. I want you to think about, we're not going to go to the poll here, but I want you to think about all of the reasons why people choose a career path. People choose careers based on different things, and they choose careers at different times based on different things, right? So depending on where you are in your life, you might have a different set of values than you would at a little bit later time in your life. And that's okay, and we don't all have the same value, and that's what makes the world go round, right? So we're all different. So I want to introduce you to the 4 key work values. So if you look at the research, it really boils down to there are 4 values that we all draw from when we choose our careers. And why it's really important that we understand what work values are is that there is a strong correlation between job satisfaction and just general life happiness and how well your work aligns with your work values. So ultimately the goal is to help us as individuals and our students find jobs that align with their work values. So the first work value is an intrinsic work value, and this idea of autonomy and interest. So interest, we've talked a lot about that as understanding what's the big why, understanding these key messages about STEM. That's what's going to spark student interest in these careers when we talk to them in a way that's exciting and interesting to them. And so autonomy, that's this sort of idea of like being self-directed, self-guided. And if you look at the literature, younger generations are increasingly opting towards careers based on intrinsic values, and then there is a decrease in prestige and extrinsic values, which we'll talk about next. So extrinsic values, this is this idea of making money and having job security. If you look at all of the jobs, including STEM skills, that use STEM skills, including those in health and medicine, then STEM jobs represent 70% of the highest 150 paying jobs in the country. I don't think this is any surprise to us. I mean, I think that we all have just some good understanding that if you have a job in STEM that you're going to be paid well for it. And then this idea of job security. We talked about how in-demand STEM careers are, and so if they're in demand, that means that you're probably going to be able to find a job. And so someone who has an extrinsic work value would really benefit from going into a STEM career. Prestige values, this is this idea of wanting to work in a respected occupation. And then social values is wanting to work with people or to contribute with society. And again, this aligns well with the messages that we just talked about. And if you look at how students sort of fall into these 4 quadrants, the majority, not all, but the majority of young women fall into the social values. And that's also reflected in the careers that they are historically choosing, those in the health professions. And again, the point here is that there is a strong correlation between how well your job and career aligns with your work values and job satisfaction. And so even if you in your career, if you're feeling some tension between your job, it likely means that there's some tension in your work values. And so I think our goal for our students would be that we can help them to understand what their work values are and to see how those work values will shift over time. Because I certainly know that as an 18-year-old trying to get out of small town Texas, I was extrinsically driven. I needed the college scholarships. I needed to go make money. I needed to get out of small town Texas. But now that I'm a little bit older, I, am more drawn towards the intrinsic and social values of my work. And so helping students to see how STEM falls into each of these different values is really key. I want to give you just a really quick example of how to sort of tune into student language. And there's a worksheet and activity that's part of the toolkit that you can use as well. But I'm going to throw up a poll here. But what I want you to do is I want you to identify the work values and the phrases from these students. So the phrase here is it is important that I love my work and that the work I do make a difference in the world. Let me open the poll here. So be thinking, what are the 2 different values here? Okay, so the statement is, it is important that I love my work and that the work I do make a difference in the world. We've got 5 people voting for intrinsic and social. We've got a couple social and extrinsic. So I want to love the work that I do. So that's what? Interest, which is what? Intrinsic. And that the work I do make a difference in the world. That's social values. So we've got social social and intrinsic. Very good. Okay, so the next one is I want a job that allows me to have a better social status. And I want a good paying job so that I can buy the things that I want. So change your vote here. What are the two values? I want a job that allows me to have a better social status, and I want a good paying job so that I can buy the things I want. We've got the majority of you voting extrinsic and prestige. That's exactly right? So when you hear students use language, you can help tune in to what their work values might be. And then the idea is that you start telling them and talking to them about careers in STEM or about other non-traditional pathways that they may not have considered based on these same kind of work values. And so we encourage you to look at the toolkit to read more. You're welcome to reach out to me. I can give you some more information on STEM careers and other non-traditional careers. But the idea here is that we as educators learn to tune into the language that our students are using and link that to their opportunities and careers that are ahead of them. And so you'll see here, this is an example of an activity that you can do. It's just a quick little worksheet that essentially links that same language that they might be thinking. You'll see the little thought bubbles, and it links it to STEM careers. So I encourage you to do that with your students. This is an easy activity. It's designed for middle school through high school, but if you can get the older students in community college and university to really think about their language, and get past the idea that it's a word bank, it might be fun and useful for them as well to identify the different careers and how STEM might be a possibility for them. So I want to take you into the final activity, and then I'm going to wrap up here. But there are 2 resources that are used for another activity that help you and your students explore the different pathways. And the first uses the Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Outlook Handbook, and the next is Science Buddy. So I've got some screenshots here. So if you go to bls.gov/OOH, what you'll see on the left are occupational groups. And so you can select the STEM careers or the CTE non-traditional careers, and then help your students explore that. So I've selected here architecture and engineering. And then when you get to this page, I've selected aerospace engineering and operations technician. So you can see that the entry-level education is an associate's degree with median pay at over $60,000. And when you click on that page, it brings you to tons of information. And so I just wanted to draw your attention to this as an incredible resource for you as an educator to help you understand what is out there for your students and to help direct them to that as well. And so once you get here, you'll see some tabs here, a summary, what they do, the work environment, how to become one, pay. This includes like all the classes that they need to take in high school, what kinds of just general skills they might need for these kinds of jobs. And so this is a great resource for you, and this is used in the activities in the toolkit as well. The next resource is Science Buddies, and it's sciencebuddies.org, and you'll click the green science careers there. And then you've got a similar database, but again, this is a great resource for you. This website is designed more specifically for student interface, and so I encourage you to use that. And again, it has similar information as the Occupational Outlook Handbook. And there's 2 activities in the toolkit that help students to work through and to dig through these sites to discover careers that they might be interested in. Additionally, in the toolkit are kudos cards. There are 5 cards that are designed for you to help students connect their personal skills with STEM careers, and you can write them as little notes. You say you are curious and love to learn. Here's how I know. You write a note. We've had people make bulletin boards out of them. We've had people mail them home, and then they put them in their fridge. And so we have 5 of these, and they're part of the toolkit as well. So again, the key takeaway points from this quick overview is that we want you to be able to explain the value of STEM careers using positive messaging that's attractive to every kind of student. We want you to be able to incorporate the benefits of STEM careers into discussions that will appeal to work values of students. And then finally, we want you to realize that there are lots of different pathways and opportunities into non-traditional careers and STEM careers, and that you encourage every kind of student to pursue those. Some super strategies to take away before I hand it over to Lynn is that you can conduct the activities in the toolkit. There are 4 activities in the toolkit. You can write kudo cards to your students, encouraging them and helping them to connect. Because again, like the Women Can Do conference really builds on, is that role models are really important. And then helping expose students to a diverse group of STEM professionals through posters, books, and websites, inviting speakers to talk to your students and pairing them with mentors. These are the strategies that are going to help you to connect young women to non-traditional careers in STEM. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Lynn. She's a counselor in Vermont, and she's been working in this space for a long time, and she's a pro, and she's going to talk to you about some of the things that they're doing in Vermont that hopefully can help you connect some of your opportunities. Thanks.
Thanks, Megan, and hi, everybody. I want to talk about this from a values place and an action place. I've been doing this a long time in Vermont. We're a small state. I would have thought that we would have seen such a much bigger change in gender segregation in the workplace, not because I think I would have been so effective, but we have such a great team of people here in Vermont. What I'm excited about this collaboration is that our point today is to say, you know, flyers are great, but that is not a pathway building. Activities are not enough. How do we link them together? Even today's Burlington Free Press talked about my point in this first slide, which is the money's where the women aren't. It continues to be that way. I have so many students who have grown up in poverty. They're not sure how to get out of it. What I'm realizing more and more is that they need us to believe in them and help them get voice, to think about it's not rocket science, it's a plan. And how do you find and how do you give voice, how do you help young kids give voice to what they like doing, and then push them a little bit to take the next step. So I'm not going to read through all this, but recently I've been really appreciating Sonia Sotomayor's memoir, and also a book written by Debjani Biswa, who you'll see some resources here coming along a bit in the NAEP resources you can download. But I want to point out that poverty and dead ends doesn't have to be a legacy that's multi-generational. We have opportunities to encourage kids early and to take advantage almost of a building blocks kind of approach to careers. I also want to say that while engineering, we all just imagine advanced degrees, I want to talk about tiered workplace certifications as the way we really want to be working with kids. Certainly there are those kids who are probably not first-generation college kids who have a plan. I'm actually more concerned about the larger population of students for whom high schools don't know quite what to do. They're not probably going to fit their success rate by saying, yes, they went to a college. Unfortunately, that success rate, I think, should be looked at 3 years down the road. Are they still in college? Are they being able to be successful? Are they happy with what they're doing there? Getting to a big C college is not success in itself. So how do we get kids thinking earlier? And let's remember, the money is not where the women are, or the women aren't where the money is. So there is a really big economic foundation for why, as well as an ethical one, but an economic foundation for why we need to be looking at non-traditional career encouragement among girls. I would like to call your attention to this study. 200 girls were involved through Vermont Works for Women and in collaboration with a few other wonderful visionaries to try to find out what we as adults can do, maybe should be doing. So this is listed in the download. You can get both this executive summary and the full report. But the major thing that's said here by kids, loud and clear, is that girls feel they just don't know enough. They have very limited exposure to doing anything. There certainly are things what we can do, but how do we listen to girls? What are their concerns? How can we get them more excited about making a link between school and work? I've always thought, well, technical centers, it's where I work, it's my bias. But there's a great quote in here that from a girl who says, well, yes, there is the tech center where you can get a taste of trades, you can learn things that would help you in the future, but it's not like they're making us try it or go there. So enrolling at the tech center has to come down to your own self-awareness. It's all on your own shoulders. So I guess I'm speaking to the middle school and high school guidance counselors out there to please link with your tech center. There are lots of ways to do it. It's got to be intentional, though. So even in academics, how do we use math, word problems, to speak about careers, to help kids research, language arts, social studies? There's so many opportunities for kids to find someone they're interested in, find out how did they get to where they are. And talk about gender equity, it just amazes me how many times still in 2014 that I can be listening to a lecture and the person can give 6 examples of some very interesting, wonderful person, and they're all male. So how do we make sure that's not happening in a sensitive enough way in our colleagues' classrooms that we can urge the change rather than be angry or demand the change? So every single academic class, but hands-on exploration is really, I think, where it's at. This is one activity at the Center for Technology where I teach that's part of a Saturday open house. But this particular workshop was geared directly to girls. An interesting thing happened at this when the boy students and male teachers were milling around the open house, encouraging girls to come and try these tools. They were not very interested, a little bit fearful. When the adult women role models and female students from other programs approached the same girls, they ran right over. So I think we have learned a lot from kids. We need to just continue to put it into practice, which is how and why the Women Can Do conference not only came about, but why it's so important. So that is an activity, but how does all of these activities that we have in the state, how do we turn them into strategies? We have personalized learning plans coming into play in Vermont very soon. I'm going to urge everyone listening to this to start using that language, because middle schools and high schools, by law, have to pay attention to PLPs, personalized learning plans. Are they thinking about a personalized learning plan from a gender equity perspective, or from a enough said learning message where girls are feeling left out? They don't know about managing money. They think they should go to college. They have no idea why. So how do we get these details? The salaries, the education requirements, the certifications, where are the jobs? How do we create a pathway for girls? In Vermont, again, we have high school activities, and I want to commend Laurel Butler, who's actually in the audience right now, for putting together this simple handout. But this is happening tomorrow at Vermont Tech. There is the Try a Major Day, Governor's Institutes, Rosie's Girls, which is actually a Vermont Works for Women activity, is a summer camp for 8th grade girls, middle school girls, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade girls. These happen all over the state, and these are statewide activities. If we start to find girls who enjoy one thing, the building trades activity at the open house, and then they come to a Girls Can Too Day, which is something we host at local tech centers all over the state, usually for 8th grade girls. Then they get to high school. Try a Major Day, the Governor's Institute, the Women Can Do Conference in October. We can very easily keep sending postcards, keep reminding girls, you did that, you liked that, what did that mean to you? If you look in Megan's toolkit, there are really specific activities that we can follow up with those kids when they get back to school. I think of tech centers as a resource, not only for the kids who choose to attend. We have programs for 10th graders, but our major focus is 11th and 12th graders. We're not an alternative to college. We're part of the pathway. Who does it make sense for? To me, it makes huge sense for that more than 50% group of kids in high school who hit their senior year not really knowing what they're going to do. The expense of college is outrageous as a way to go and grow up. And I continually see young people and their parents wanting to know the economic reality of the value of college. I'm college educated. I would imagine most of you are. Of course it was very valuable, but can we break it down to smaller steps? Can we encourage kids to take the next step? Can we look at workplace certifications like you can get in a technical center, dual enrollment college credits that you can get in high school that begin to build a path for kids, or change their path, which is every bit as valuable. I've actually met girls who want to be cosmetologists or welders. They just can't decide which. Now, that's fun. As long as they're not welding while someone's in a cosmetology chair, we're in great shape. But these are young people. How can we build on their enthusiasm? I'd like you to answer this poll just to give me a sense of how familiar you are with what goes on in your local tech center. And I certainly don't know who you are, but recently, were you in your tech center enough that you feel that you know what's going on there, or is it based on what was going on in technical education when you were young? Okay, so I'm looking at this, and it looks like we have a very educated group of people about technical education. Great. I'm going to move that on then and point out two books that I've recently been reading that have built a lot of my recent concern with that middle group of students in high school. Whether they come to a technical center to take the next step or not, I'm looking to the people listening to this webinar to feel personally invested in how to move them through, how to give them voice, how to recognize them, how to call attention to them. I'm not quite sure yet how to name it, but I can see girls who might actually want to be doing something unusual, something different. Sometimes it's the way they're dressed, the fact that on the weekend they went four-wheeling, This time of year, I know that they're hunting. I may say to these girls, so, you know, guys do that stuff, and sometimes it relates to careers. Have you ever thought about what you might want to do when you finish school? What kinds of stuff do you like? It's a simple way to engage a girl, either to do some research, talk to her social studies teacher and see if she can get some credit for that, or to go to one of these many events, and a lot of them are listed on the download. So anyway, I call your attention to these books because they've just been really broadening my mind about what it takes, how simple it can be to make a massive difference in someone's life. This young woman, this really moved me. This was right after the Women Can Do conference last month. This young woman, she's 18 years old in this photograph. Her name is Jody Dow. And she talks about not really knowing that she was probably going to go to college. I think she might have thought at one point it was health career. She really didn't know what she wanted to do. She was in a technical center. They brought her to the Women Can Do conference. She met someone from VTrans, the Vermont Transportation Agency, who gave her a chance to drive some heavy equipment, but they also gave her a business card. That simple thing led to her, as she was about to graduate from from high school, worried about what to do next. Simple next step. They suggested, well, why don't you try to get your CDL? Why don't you do that next? Commercial driver's license. Led to a job with VTrans. Summer, maybe to start, heavy equipment operation. Loved it. She is now working in a really good job for the state. This is a job with benefits at the state of Vermont. And look at this simple pathway. But what it came down to was somebody just taking the next step. The next step, why don't you come to this? The next step, here's a business card, call me. The next step, here's how you can find that training. And it happened to be right at her tech center. This year, she came back to Women Can Do. Can you imagine the power of this 18-year-old speaking to young girls about her salary and the fact that she has no loans? There are things we can all do. The biggest thing is we can't wait for someone else to do it. We are a small state. I know that sitting on this webinar are folks from CCV, from VTC, from the Burlington Linking Learning to Life. I know you call yourself something else, Deanna. I think it's Navigate. But there are people here, and we talk to each other. We know who each other are. We have this statewide agency, Vermont Works for Women, that is phenomenal, and we have allies in the Agency of Education. I don't know if you can see, but sitting behind me is a photograph of a young woman who owns her own automotive repair business. I remember her as a high school junior. She barely could get out of bed. She came to the tech center because she thought it would be a way to get credits she needed to graduate from high school. She went into automotive because it was the only thing that looked fun to her. She actually worked on cars and ATVs with her family on the weekend. She lived in the country. Well, after she got reinforced by her teacher that not only was she good at this, but she could be good at this, she decided to stay with it 2 years. She graduated with some ASE certifications, workplace valuable certifications. She got a job. She then went to VTC, and she added to her automotive training with business training. She has a bachelor's in business, and she owns her own automotive repair. This is a really important series of success stories, this little mini-series, because I don't have much time. But I want to just encourage us all to be looking for these things. They may seem disconnected, but things from the local recreation department, doing activities, the continuing education classes that happen after school at tech centers, the summer camps that happen, the Governor's Institutes, the Women Can Do opportunities. There's a VTrans runs a transportation camp on college campus at UVM in the summer. There are dual enrollment classes. Kids can take a free college class. It doesn't just have to be math and English and social studies, and you can use those dual enrollment vouchers to go to VTC or CCV and look at classes in certificate programs. That's a great first step out of high school for a student who's not sure to jump in enough or can't afford to with 2 feet. But let's keep thinking STEM, because the jobs where the money is are not where the women are yet. And I really want to see us make a dent in that, and we need to verbalize that, and we need to start in middle schools. I know there are lots of middle school people involved in this work. I don't see them on the webinar today, so we're going to have to find a way to make sure that we know how to take this back to them. Coming up at our tech center in a couple of months are lots of activities. A Saturday open house where again we'll have hands-on workshops, followed by spring activities directed at middle school girls. The entire ice rink is full of hands-on activities like a mini Women Can Do conference. When that ends, all of those names and addresses are given to Vermont Works for Women so that those girls are reminded the following year when they hit 9th grade that they can do a similar thing at a college, at Vermont Technical College in October. These are the kind of things that I'm wishing we would all make an investment in, talk to each other. Our emails, information is all on the download, and I'm looking at the clock. We've run way over, but I'm curious. I don't know if we have time for this poll, whether you think we do. If we do, I want to know what you need. So that's the different poll, but if someone can tell us about, so this is open-ended. If there's something you think you need, a resource, is it a person, is it materials, for you to do something your own self other than what you're already doing, where you work, in your neighborhood, in your church, this doesn't just have to be at your work. How do we take the messages we're getting in Enough Said and do something ourselves? So people say money. Frankly, I want to say that's the easy thing. Now there's a good one. We need access to girls. Yep, we do. And so we need to go where they are. Girls' sports teams. There are coaches who would be happy to hand something out. We maybe should be thinking about that. And yet those are girls who are a little bit linked in. How do we find these more fringe-dwelling girls? How do we ask schools, who are the girls you're concerned about? They will tell you quickly who are the boys they're concerned about because they act out differently. Girls tend to act in, or they aggress against each other, or they hurt themselves. They're unhappy and they're unsure, and they need us. They need strong women role models to say, hey, there's great stuff happening. And that girl, that young woman, Jody Dow, that was pretty exciting to see in one short year a pathway for her that brought her all the way back around to being a role model. I am supposed to stop quite a while ago. I think we would want to know, I don't see any questions that people have already asked that haven't been answered. Are there some that you would want to put in the chat function that, and you could also just ask it. Up above here, there's a microphone that you can click. I think most of you have it, or you can type a question if there's something specific for Megan, for Kelly, myself. I know that at this time we often also say to people, if you need to go, you should go. But we're excited to be able to answer questions. If you want to leave an email on the chat and there's a resource you need, but you have all of our emails. You also have, thanks to Kelly and Megan, phenomenal list of resources that you can download. and it's been posted again. It's called the Handout STEM Webinar, if you want to download that. So I'm not sure who would answer this, but there is information to how to get the toolkit that Megan talked about. You can get through NAEP, and it's called the Counselor's Toolkit. And the Women Can Do activity, that statewide conference, is actually coordinated by Vermont Works for Women, and there's a link to that in the download as well.
Yeah, so if you download the document there underneath Lynn's webcam, there's an order form in the handout, as well as you can go to napequity.org/counselors and get more information there. Or you can email me and I'm happy to connect you.
I'd like to put in a plug for everybody to just at least go visit the NAEP website if you're not already a member, napequity.org, NAPQuity or napequity.org. Vermont, anyone who's here, and many other states, if your state is a member, then you can join for your entire organization for $100. There's so much there I can't even begin to tell you.
Thank you. Now, Lynn, you have one more slide here. Let's see if you want to end with that, and then I can do the ending part of our webinar. I think you have your last slide. Oh, well, I'll just start in and say thank you. I really appreciate the information that Kelly and Lynn have shared that pertain to Vermont, and they're very specific to their programs, and also what Megan had to share that to tell us about the toolkit. And I hope that everyone did download the information or the resource packet, so you have that. I do want to encourage you to join our, okay, let's see where we are. I've said thanks there. Let me see if we can move on to the next one. These are the products and services from NAEP, and Lynn has already talked about the affiliate membership and the benefits that you receive. We also provide professional development. We will customize webinars if you have specific needs. We have an annual Professional Development Institute in April. You can go on the NAEP website and find the details. We also have some wall art, and those are posters that can be ordered, and we have consulting services. So if you need any of those, I noticed that one person had an idea that they'd like to see in the reauthorization of Perkins, and I want them to contact Mimi Lufkin at NAEP and let her know what the issues are. I will also be talking to her about the issue that was expressed in the chat function. Let's see. Please join the virtual learning community. I had someone that asked about Girl Scouts, and there was a webinar on partnerships in Iowa, and you can go and look at that archived webinar and listen to the partnership that's been developed between Girl Scouts and the educational agencies in that state. I thank each of you for participating in our webinar, and just appreciate the different chats that people brought up, and it gives us ideas. I already have an idea of another webinar that we might need to do, so thank you. And I'd like to ask you to complete a survey that tells us how we've done on the webinar, and when you do complete it, there's a second page that will come up about a certificate of completion if you'd like to have that. So I think that Greg, I think you're going to be on, and you're going to pop up that do they just hit the quick link that's right here in the upper box? Okay, it popped up for me and it took me to another tab in my browser, and I've now moved back to my browser that has everyone on, and I just want to say thanks, and please fill out our survey. Anybody else have any comments before we get off?
Just take a step. Every step is a step.
That's right. Every step is a step. It makes a difference.
Kelly and Lynn, thanks so much for hosting this with us today, and I appreciate the work that you all are doing in Vermont to encourage young women to consider non-traditional pathways. I know that the work is valuable, and it's not easy, but it's meaningful, and we hope that we've inspired more people to do the same. So, great job.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to sign off now, and Kelly and Lynn, if you want to stay on with Megan and Greg and I, we do a little debriefing afterwards. Oh, you've got the book right there to show everyone. Excellent.
Everybody read Sonia Sotomayor's book if you can. You'll be really happy that you did. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.